Manowar implies that everybody has got battles to overcome, whether it's illness, personal things, a fight to be something different, change your life, and be better at what you are, and just believe in yourself.
Manowar, born to live forevermore, the right to conquer every star.
Other bands play, Manowar kill. If the term sincere cheese could be used to describe any band under the yellow sun, it'd be Manowar. Oh sure, they're every metal cliche wrapped up into a neat little six-pack package. But you know what? If liking that is wrong, then I don't want to be right. Wimps and posers, leave the hall. Raise your swords to the winds, brothers and very few sisters, because it's time to talk about Manowar. When bass badass Joey DeMaio met Dictator's guitarist Ross the Boss Friedman while working on Black Sabbath's Heaven and Hell tour, upon advice from Ronnie James Dio himself, the two formed a band, picking up Carl Kennedy for a demo and then picking up drummer Donnie Hamzik and speaker shatterer and close personal friend to Joey, Eric Adams. Manowar were born.
Ross and I first played together in one of their dressing rooms, actually using their guitars. I think actually Ross had his. I think I grabbed one of Geezer's basses. But yeah, while Sabbath was on stage, Ross and I started jamming in the dressing rooms.
Securing a record contract, the label basically said, all right, you got this much time to write this many songs, get at her, boys. But the time crunches did not hinder the crunch on the devastating debut that is Battle Hymns. It may not fully be the Manowar you know and love, but all those elements are present and accounted for. Eric sings and screams like the banshee that he is, Ross's guitar playing is boss, Joey's bass booms, and Donnie's drums dominate. You even got all the quintessential Manowar lyrical topics like battles, fighting for true metal, and giving squares the finger. From the Vietnam affectations of shell shock and death tone to the more fantasy-driven stuff like Dark Avenger, you've got a killer album on your hands, people.
Bound on the shoreline, left for the time.
A fun little fact about Dark Avenger, they actually managed to pull Orson Welles to do a narration in the middle of the song. I actually was very surprised it didn't sound like, the French champagne. If you know, you know. Battle Hymns was a great introduction to the band. After an opening slot for Ted Nugent fell through, the band went on their own tour, losing Donnie Hamzik after the stress got to him. But then they acquired the late great drummer Scott Columbus and charged once more onto the breach.
The volume, I think enough of us are going to go a little deaf. We're not going to be able to appreciate Debussy or Vivaldi again.
Yeah. Well, here again, it's definitely not for everybody. Heavy metal is heavy metal, and it appeals to a select crowd, and volume is a part of it. It's just that our volume we like to think of as very clear. It's loud, but it's not noise, although some people will debate that.
Atop the mountain where the river of steel flows.
Obtaining a decent-sized fan base, mostly coming from Europe, the band went on to sign with Megaforce Records, literally in their own blood. And then they went to work on what was supposed to be an EP with Orson Welles in tow, but would instead become the sophomore stunner, Into Glory Ride. Alright, let's just get this out of the way. What in the fresh fuck am I looking at? Yeah, nice proto-Uggs and toy swords, guys. But if you think the songs on this album are gonna be as bad as its cover, didn't your mommy ever tell you not to judge a book by its cover? While Battle Hymns was a more raw, in-your-face type album, Into Glory Ride is a more monstrous, mostly mid-tempo affair. Apart from the opening track Warlord, this album chugs like the Dickens. But unlike A Matter of Life and Death from Iron Maiden, the songs on this album are actually good. The lyrics take a bit more of a deeper dive into the more mythical might that was only merely mentioned on Battle Hymns. From songs like Revelation, Death's Angel, to Secret of Steel, and my favorite track, the 7-minute epic Gates of Valhalla. I repeat for posterity, if the Viking metal genre sounded more like this and Black Sabbath's Tear, I would be more inclined to listen to it. you can go to hell, Among Amarth. The band also released their first music video for the awesome track Gloves of Metal and all its steed-riding, sword-waving glory. The band even found their way onto Nickelodeon of all places on a show called Livewire.
Yeah, it was good music. It was a bit loud. No, but it was good.
Yeah.
And I like the rock music.
Well, it's hard in a TV studio.
Yeah.
But in a big arena, I can see you blowing. Yeah,
Like on MTV.
How about parents, Becky? I want to get a viewpoint, Becky. What'd you think?
I'm wondering if this is one of their more mellow numbers.
Yes, this was our love song.
Right there.
Into Glory Ride spread out the soundscape of what the band calls true metal. Funky cover or no, it's a great album and you should listen to it. Next.
In England and Europe, they know true metal, and in America, they are just beginning to now.
One of the many things Manowar do well, apart from making badass records, is holding their fans in the highest of esteems.
We are here to rock. We are here to drink. We're here to get some fucking pussy and have a damn good time. Are you with us? And if you don't like it, if there's any assholes in here that came for country music or jazz or anything else, get the fuck out. There's the door. If you don't like heavy metal, fuck you!
Titling an album and even penning a song on said album as a tribute to their fans, 1984's Hail to England is just a fantastic record that blends the atmosphere and mythology of Into Glory Ride with the get in and get the fuck out bite of battle hymns. Like I said, this album is just stupendous, and it only took them 6 days to record, which just makes it that much better. I can imagine being a fan from England and picking up this album and seeing it as a tribute to me, even though they use the United Kingdom flag and not my own. But you know what? This album's so good I won't hold it against them. This album has some of the best Manowar songs on it, from Blood of My Enemies to the title track to the aforementioned fan song Army of the Immortals. But for me, a lesser known track takes top billing, The Killer, Kill with Power. Hail to Manowar, and hail, hail to England. Next. Released just 10 months after Hail to England, the Sign of the Hammer shows that when it comes to Manowar, rush jobs just mean less time to wait for killer albums. What I initially thought was a good album, but not as good as Hail to England, I now consider one of Manowar's top fucking 5. From the opening anthem, All Men Play on 10, to the closing Jonestown tune, Guyana, Cult of the Damned, the inclusion of more faster tracks like Animals and The Oath, and more epic songs like Mountains and Thor, the Powerhead, make me wonder why I ever thought this album was lesser than Hail to England. Although the instrumental Thunder Pick is 2 minutes too long, it just goes to show how great of a bassist Joey DeMaio actually is. And yes, I mean that sincerely. The Sign of the Hammer had no business being lower on my list, but I'm really glad that I remedied that. After releasing 2 albums in 1 year, Manowar began feeling exhausted, and I don't think the 2-year-long tour to follow helped that at all. So the next album would be a little while coming.
Yo, man, what's on TV? Nothing. Put this on.
Taking the year 1986 off to, recuperate after releasing 2 back-to-back albums and doing a 2-year-long tour to support them. After signing with Atlantic Records, the band would release in 1987 The Ferocious, Fighting the World. And with that aforementioned Atlantic deal, the album was more widely distributed, and that's great because this album rocks hard and makes me rock hard. TMI, go fucking die. The songs are more upbeat, the performances are more pristine. This is just a more happier sounding Manowar album, with songs like Black Wind, Fire and Steel and Violence and Bloodshed. Not even the turbo cheese of Carry On can keep this album down. Even Orson Welles makes an appearance from the grave on the devastating Defender, which was a song that was supposed to be on the EP that was supposed to be Into Glory Ride. I would also like to take this time to mention the amazing cover and artwork of One Ken Kelly, whose pen can be seen on Kiss's Destroyer and Love Gun albums. Sorry, it had to be done. And the rest of the Manowar albums coming up. His covers kick ass, and so does Fighting the World. Death to False Metal, forever fighting the world. With Manowar working on a full charge, what would they come up with next? When you think Manowar, you probably think Kings of Metal, the band's best-known album containing some of their biggest classics. It's beloved by many a Manowar fan across the world. So how come I'm not one of them? Now, don't get me wrong, I'm trying not to be a contrarian hipster here. I've dry hummed tracks like the title track in Kingdom Come going on years now. But after the bloated ballad Heart of Steel, you better get ready for a fuckload of filler. While tracks like Hail and Kill and Wheels of Fire are good, they're brought down by the putrid Pleasure Slave and the bedtime story, The Warrior's Prayer. Get used to long stretches of narration, people, because they are not going anywhere anytime soon. As much as it pains me to say it, Kings of Metal really doesn't live up to its classic status. It's also the last album to feature guitar great Ross the Boss.
Joey asked me to leave.
But why?
Well, I think he wanted full control of the band. Having me in the band, I'm not about to be led by the nose. I'm not about to be led by the nose. I'm not to be told what to do. So I think he needed that thing. He didn't. He made the decision.
Replacing the boss man would be a super shredder by the name of David Schenkel, and even drummer Scott Columbus would tender his resignation papers around this time, picking his own replacement, the cacophonous Kenny Earl Edwards. And since Manowar aren't ones to back down from a fight, they just kept marching forward.
I just couldn't get along. I'm too much of a street punk guy, a New York City guy, that I have my roots in punk rock and garage rock and blues and stuff like that, and gutter. And Manowar wasn't just like that, and you can tell when I left after those 6 records. I mean,
the new Manowar lineup would take its time coming up with new material, but in the year of our Lord 1992, the triumph of steel was unleashed. Now, the first thing you'll notice about this album is its first track, Achilles' Agony and Ecstasy, in 8 parts. A complete musical retelling of the Iliad of Homer. A great idea on paper, until you realize the song is 28 minutes long, and it's mostly filled with nothing. But apart from that Herculean opening track, Homerline, I don't know, I can't think of anything clever for it. The rest of the material is actually really good, a hell of a lot better than Kings of Metal. While I do prefer Ross's more loose cannon bluesy style of playing, for no other reason than it kind of reminds me of my own, David Schenkel's shredcraft does fit the symphonic soundscape of Manowar, and tracks like Spirit Horse of the Cherokee and The Power of Thy Sword hit like Amber Heard. Oh sure, I make a lot of jokes about male abusers, but this is the one that rustles your jimmies. But I just can't get over the concert staple Metal Warriors. Hearing Eric Adams wail just makes me wish with all my heart that I could do that. If there's one thing I can't handle about this album, it's the long stretches of dialogue. Hey Manowar, you do know there's such a thing as letting your music do the talking, right? Regardless, the triumph of steel is a triumph over the last album, but not a triumph in keeping their new guitarist. With David Schenkel leaving abruptly to form his own band, Manowar were once again up Schitt's Creek without a paddle, guitarist, and drummer.
Well, we feel that it's time people realize once and for all
who the loudest band is in the world.
So we have a maximum sound pressure reading with the band of 129.5 dB, which is half a dB short of the magic 130 dB. But guys, nobody has ever played that loud, ever before.
With Scott Columbus reclaiming his drum seat and the band picking up a man who should have spent more time wanking on his guitar than the disgusting porn, Carl Logan, the band went to work hammering out material like the cover of this album suggests. Louder Than Hell is a more stripped down Manowar album, less symphonic elements and more focus on raw, true metal. I'd say like battle hymns, but the song Courage really wouldn't fit on that album. But the rest of the material 100% could. Even though the instrumentals are skippable, I can't recommend songs like Number One, The Gods Made Heavy Metal, Power, and the cowboy anthem Outlaw enough.
To the west, I'm got by your side. Hell and glory, honor and pride. I'm done for the side.
Critics may bitch and moan that this album is too simple, but the only thing that's simple are them. Play Louder Than Hell, louder than hell. It's really the only way you can do it. After this album, Manowar would spend their time creating a shitload of live albums and EPs, but not going back to the studio for another full length. But when they did, holy good god damn.
Play the music that we want, that our fans want. So we're happy. And if anybody else doesn't like it, fuck you. We don't really care.
This album, Warriors of the World, is a fist-pumping, shredding ass kicker. From the opening call to arms, you're punched hard with killer tracks and lightly slapped around with a few weak instrumentals. But hey, God invented the skip button for a reason. The 2 cover songs on this album don't take away from the listening experience at all. The American Trilogy cover is the best next to the original by the King Elvis Presley, and Nessun Dorma is Eric Adams singing to the heavens for his dearly departed mother. It's honestly very astounding how Eric Adams can still sing this good. But while the first half of this album is great, everything after and including the awesome anthem Warriors of the World United is a home run. Especially my favorite track, Hand of Doom. I mean this with all my heart when I say that Warriors of the World is quite possibly my favorite Manowar album, with a more modern sheen applied to that true metal sound. Brothers everywhere, raise your hands into the air, cause we're warriors. Warriors of the world. Next. That was so cheesy, I swear to God. After taking their time touring the world, the band went back into the studio to work on their first full-blown concept album. Now, Manowar have been doing themes and concepts across albums their entire career, but this is their first top-to-bottom concept album about Odin, the king of the gods. Which means that, yes, there's narration and a lot of it.
Upon his shoulders perch 2 ravens, Hugin and Lilin. They circle the...
Oh my God. But the same can be said with a different inflection for the actual songs on Gods of War. Songs like King of Kings, The Sons of Odin, and Sleipnir. Quite possibly my favorite Manowar song of all time, and even ranking in my top 20 favorite all-time songs. You know why? Because it's fucking awesome, man.
Carry we who die in battle over land and sea, across the rainbow.
It's just a shame you have to wade through so much bullshit to find it. But sadly, that's not the only tragic thing that would happen around this time. After a completely unnecessary re-recording of their debut battle hymns, with even original drummer Donny Hamzik coming back, longtime drummer Scott Columbus would tragically pass away. Whatever I may feel about the bloated album that is Gods of War, it's a perfect epitaph for Manowar's longtime drummer. Rest in peace, Scott Columbus. Next.
Well, you know, sonically, it's a journey. The songs themselves wouldn't be presented unless the songs were something that we were pleased with. So letting the fans hear the actual raw tracks is fun for us because we want the record to be as raw as possible.
Much like how Louder Than Hell stripped the Manowar sound to its bare bones, 2012's The Lord of Steel repeats that style. And given how much I like that album, you'd think it'd be a no-brainer that I'd like this one too. And I do, just not as much. There are some modern Manowar classics on here, no doubt, like Man of Warriors, El Gringo, and my personal favorite track, Born in a Grave.
When the light goes away, we come out to play. Innocence lost and the demon within.
But with some of the band's most painful filler on it, and that includes Kings of Metal, I really don't see myself making a quick return to the Lord of Steel. And that seems to be the band's attitude as well, inking out more EPs and re-recording more albums, even going on a final tour. As a Kiss fan, those words mean nothing to me. Manowar still soldier on to this day, despite Carl's kitty affectations getting him removed. Well, that does it for another episode of the Retrospective series. I thank you all once again for sitting with me, and until next time, hail and kill with Manowar. I'm Liam Winfield. Keep on rocking.
He can't even fucking see. He's blind and he came to fucking see Manowar. He bangs his head more than anyone. This is a true king of metal. I tried to follow him into the mosh pit. He left me behind. Ran right up the front. The dude can't even see. And who was banging their head the most? This man, Raph. Why? Because Manowar are the best. The fucking best.